Hey, it's Todd Fox here.
Hey, everybody, it's Todd Fox.
It's Halos in the infield, and we're obviously rusty. Stepping on toes. No,
I just wanted to trip you up.
you sure
I
did.
wanted to trip you up and say I was Todd Fox.
Well, I'm the Lone Star Halo here in Anaheim. This is Todd Fox, along with the other host of the show.
Fernando, everybody, coming to you from New Jersey today.
Ooh, New Jersey. Beautiful New Jersey. And we have our friend, as always, from Catella Chronicles.
What's up, everybody? Dominic Lorenz in the house.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He's got the golden voice.
In the hizzle.
Yes, I'm keeping it nice for the holiday season.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. So he can sing some Christmas carols with some eggnog near the fireplace.
And enjoy an Angel acquisition here and there. Oh, wait, they haven't done that in a while.
Hey, they gave you a minor league signing not too long ago. What more do you
Justin
want?
Garza, Cal State Fullerton product. Welcome to the Angels.
There you go.
Hey, Perry likes the local guys who went to Fullerton.
Hey, I'll take it. Nothing wrong with a good Titan here and there.
There you
Still
go.
good and relevant. So,
Sure, I'll give you that one.
well, what are we going to talk about today, fellas?
So we're going to talk today about Andrelton Simmons and why I believe he is a top 3 shortstop in the Angels franchise history. And he was only an Angels for what, 5 years, I believe?
Yes.
5 seasons.
You know, some people are going to agree with me and some are not. But yeah, I think he was a great Angel, and we'll get to that momentarily. So first, maybe before we get into our opinions, just before I try to change anyone's mind, right off the bat, Todd, is Andrelton Simmons a top 3 shortstop in Angels history?
That's very.
Don't explain, just give me an answer. We'll get into it later.
No.
Okay, Dominic?
Top 3?
Top 3.
I'm gonna go contrarian and say yes, but it's tied for 3rd.
Okay, all right, cool. So we'll get to it. We will get to it. So we have the answers now. Obviously, I think that he is. I don't think he's the best, but, you know, top 3. Okay, so let's first talk about the trade. All right, so the Angels received Andrelton Simmons and Jose Briseño, if you guys remember him.
The good old minor league veteran catcher.
Yeah, there you go. And I think now he's with the Rockies. I don't know if he still is, but he went to the Rockies. I think he lingered there for a little while. And in exchange for Briseño and for Simmons, obviously Briseño was the cream of the crop of the trade. We kind of just got Simmons. I'm just kidding. We gave up Sean Newcomb. That was, you know, the heavy punch, supposedly. Chris Ellis and Eric Ibar. So Eric Ibar is obviously somebody who's in the discussion for top 3 Angel shortstop as well. There's a lot of people who would throw his name, you know, in the hat there. So the biggest thing, let's talk about Sean Newcomb, because he was an Angels top prospect at the time. I believe, was he our top prospect back in 2016?
He was number 1 for a good chunk of the time.
Yeah.
I saw a numerous number of his starts when he was at the minor league level, especially at Inland Empire with the 66ers. He was nasty, man. His changeup was filth. Fastball had good velocity on it. He had a little curve piece every once in a while that he was throwing, but he was really that changeup type pitcher in a sense. And he was dirty. He was a great draft pick. And at the time, back then, I would say you probably put him up with what we have now of like Sandoval and Detmers, how there was a lot of hype around them coming up through the system. That's kind of where Sean Newcomb was at that time. Even though when he went to Atlanta with that trade, he was a little bit of a bullpen piece, and then in the lineup and kind of they rotated him back and forth. He was dirty. When I saw him in the minors, dirty changeup.
So let me read you guys what they wrote about him in 2015 here. So he was 21 years old. He was graded as a B-level prospect. Age 21, first-round pick from the University of Hartford. Last spring, a 6.14 ERA with 18-6 K per walks in 15 innings in his pro debut. Big lefty with big stuff, fastball up to 96, slider, changeup, curve, cold weather arm with relatively low mileage, should be a workhorse with additional command polish. He was number 2 in the division behind a man who's Andrew Heaney. Todd's boy.
Yeah, my favorite.
The Heen Dog.
Yeah, he was an A- prospect at the time, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that minus factoring in there just a little bit.
Yeah, and then Sean Newcomb was in front of our old friend Nick Tropiano, Nitro.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
A name that Angels fans would remember for sure. And then after that, you got to go pretty damn far to find an Angel who most people would recognize. I think after that, like 7, Cam Pedrosian, 8, Chris Ellis, who was also involved in this trade, and 9, Trevor Gott, who was involved to get one of my favorite Angels of all time, Yunel Escobar. That's a different episode.
That's going to be a different podcast episode to talk about how many helmets he ruined in his Angels career, slamming them on the ground.
Hey, it's okay. The guy literally wrote F you in the dirt to an umpire and got ejected. I don't know what more you guys want. The guy was a winner. Okay. The guy was a winner.
If it was Angel Hernandez, we all agree.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into Sean Newcomb a little later. Chris Ellis was the other piece. Like I said, he was an Angels top prospect at the time. He went on to eventually make his MLB debut for the Orioles. And then Eric Ibar, who, of course, was the quote-unquote other big name that hurt a lot of Angels fans because Eric Ibar, I believe, was entering the final year of his Angels contract.
Mm-hmm.
And the Angels wanted more stability at shortstop. Ibar was aging at the time. I believe he was probably 32, 33?
Yes, he was on the downswing.
Yeah, because he's almost 39 now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was entering his mid-30s. And Eric Ibar, for those of you guys who might be newer Angels fans, was a stellar Angel. Let me see.
He was a terrific prospect for a long time because he was one of those in that young group of Angels, like the Howie Kendricks, the Eric Ibars, the Mike Napoli's, the Jared.
He came up in 06.
That came up in 06, that pretty much all came up in the same time at the time when they were Rancho Cucamonga Quakes affiliates, up to AA, up to AAA. And that was the last time I think we've had really a huge group of Angels that came up from beginning to pros through the system. Nowadays, there's more trades and everything happening in a different era of baseball right now. But he was in that group back then. And he was, again, a terrific prospect in his minor days as well.
Yeah, and coincidentally, that's when the Angels were a little more dominant in terms of winning division titles, you know what I mean? Because they built from within. They had these group of guys. They formed a culture, and it worked for, the beginning of Artie Moreno's tenure here. So real quick, Eric Ibar, 1,220 games as an Angel. He was never really a power guy. He only hit 48 home runs, but he did hit a big home run in the second to last game of the 2015 season in Texas. That eventually led the Angels to play a meaningful 162 where they ended up losing to the Rangers. But I digress. He had a 315 on base percentage, which is, pretty damn good, and a 276 career batting average as an Angel. So, I mean, I don't know what more you could have asked out of the dude. He was here for 10 years, by the way.
Yeah.
I think he was just that prototypical shortstop. Short, speedy, great glove. At the time, that's where baseball was. Nowadays, a lot of shortstops, as we see right now, Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson, all those power-hitting shortstops. It wasn't like that back in the day. Your power hitters were pretty much first, third, and your outfielders and your big thumping DH. Shortstop, he was a prototypical shortstop in baseball during his time from 06 to 2017.
Yeah, he came up at just the right time. If he would have came up, 5 or 6 years later, we might not be talking about Eric Ibar because he probably wouldn't have, survived that kind of baseball. Because like you said, almost everybody right now has a power hitting shortstop, big name shortstop. You look around the league right now, this might be the most talented group of shortstop we've ever seen in our lives at one time.
Well, yeah. When you have like I said, when you have big names like Correa, like Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Squiddy Poo. I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's incorrect.
Yeah.
That one's for Todd. That's a special one for Todd. 100% agree though. If his timing was a little bit different in his career, or he played maybe a few less years with the Angels, maybe instead of 06 to 2015, maybe 2010 to 2015, his impact might have been a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, he was kind of the the big blow to Angels fans, but realistically, the big piece that went over was Sean Newcomb. Now, Sean Newcomb's a guy who really hasn't been able to make too much of his career. Very highly touted prospect, had the stuff, a lot of injuries kind of derailed, a large chunk of his career. So his career numbers, 2.1 wins above replacement, 26 wins, 24 losses, a 4.52 ERA. He pitched 161 total games and started 58 of them. So they obviously tried him as a bullpen arm as well. Didn't work out for him either. So, and I think he just got released last year, DFA'd last year.
Yeah, they finally gave up on him. I know
Or
they were
2021, sorry, is when he got DFA'd. My apologies.
Yeah, they really wanted him to be that next pitcher because I know when they went over, Atlanta was in the rebuild mode, and they thought he was going to be a centerpiece in that trade for the future of the Atlanta Braves starting rotation. And then as they were building their rotation, he became maybe a focal point for their bullpen, a sixth man, a long reliever, supposedly a guy that could help out in the postseason. That didn't work. So I think Newcomb never lived up to his potential, and I think sadly for him, I don't think he's ever, if he gets another chance, it might just be as a long relief type dude, nothing special. I think his time has came and went for that.
Yeah, his days of starting, I think, are done.
Yeah,
I think based on those numbers, based on his trajectory from the Angels to the Braves and back and forth. I know he's had some injuries in between that has derailed his career a little bit. Starting days are over, and especially right now, even if he was still with the Atlanta Braves, he's not battling for a starting rotation spot with the Atlanta Braves right now. Maybe you see him going to a lower team, the Royals, the Tigers,
A's.
Something like that, the A's, to maybe revive his career a little bit. It'd be the perfect situation. He'd go to the A's and then throw 7 shutout against the Angels. But that's just something we're hell bent with for the rest of our lives. But that would be his best scenario in that point. I think in order for that to happen, he would have to prove health, a little longevity. He would be one of those guys that needs a 1-year deal to prove what he's got, to see if he can last a little bit longer and dry as much as he can out of his MLB dream.
To be honest, I could easily see him make an appearance with the Yakamoto Dragons, and try to get a couple-year contract over
the Savannah Bananas.
There you go, bananas.
Hey, if you think about it, a lot of those players that go foreign, especially to the KBO or Japanese, they come back a couple of years later. Look at Chris Flexen for the Mariners after he came back. I know Drew Rucinski, who's been at the KBO for a couple of years, he's trying to make a resurgence back. And Rucinski used to be a former Angel prospect before going over to Miami. I think that was the Dan Heron deal, if I'm not mistaken. But it's an interesting point that you mentioned that, Todd, about going foreign in that case.
Yeah, because you remember real quick, Marcus Thames, when he went over there, his career was about over, and then he just started hitting 50 bombs, and he gets a new contract with the Brewers. So
that's how, and he came over to the Brewers and was pretty productive.
He was
for about 2-3 years, and then he kind of tapered off after that. But still, he got 2 or 3 years out of Major League Baseball. That's a win. That's a win. If I'm Thames, why not? I'll take it.
Yeah, past 35, can't beat that.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, going to play overseas in Japan and Korea, and even some of the like the Dominican League and like Mexican fall ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
has kind of turned into what like going to the European Football League used to be for these guys.
That's true.
These football players, that's almost kind of what it's turned into. Honestly, I think that, the level of play in Japan is very good. Those are probably the second best players in the world, right? They say MLB is the best players in the world, but Japan's definitely a close second. I've actually seen like some of these foreign baseball leagues compared. So obviously the MLB is the cream of the crop. They compare playing in Japan to playing AAA baseball. The KBO to playing AA baseball is like the way I've seen it compared to on things like Reddit. And, I've heard certain guys mention that, a play like Adam Jones was like, oh, yeah, playing in Japan is kind of like playing in, AAA.
I would agree with that because, during the pandemic and all we had to watch on ESPN was reruns of championship games and KBO action at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You completely saw how offensively driven that league is, which is very reminiscent to basically low A, high A, and double A. high offensive leagues, pitching is averaging 4.5 to 5 runs a game. That's just natural. When you get to the AAA level here in America, it's pretty pitcher driven. You do get high offensive games, the 19 to 18s and the wacky games, but most of it is more pitching related. So I can see how Japan is like AAA and that stuff. But if Japan was number one, you wouldn't see guys like Ohtani and Senga and, all these Japanese top quality players.
Suzuki.
Ichiro coming over into America to play with the cream of the crop.
Absolutely.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, the goal is for any international player to get to the major leagues. It still is, and it probably will always be.
Well, yeah, obviously, there's more money in terms of contracts. Maybe not in terms of endorsements for some of these guys. But, at the end of the day, guys like Ohtani are competitive in nature. And a guy like Ohtani wants to prove that he's the best in the world. And let's be honest, from what we've seen out of 2021 and 2022, Shohei Ohtani has proven that he is the most talented baseball player on this planet. And if you disagree with me, you're lying to yourself or you're just flat out wrong. I'm not going to say maybe he's not the most consistent baseball player in the world. He hasn't proven it on a massive scale. Trout's been the best player in the world for, over a decade because he's consistent. Now, if Ohtani starts having a third straight year, okay, cool. Well, obviously we know that the first couple of years were actually a fluke with Ohtani because of his injuries. I mean, he won Rookie of the Year in 2018, right? 2018. Mm-hmm. But yeah. He had a solid year, but I mean, it wasn't an incredible year. I think if we're being honest with ourselves, the reason why he won in 2018 was because, the two guys who the Yankees had were, average to above average guys, and Ohtani's more marketable. It looks a lot better for baseball if Ohtani's your rookie of the year.
Ohtani was like a show pony for baseball.
Exactly.
Hey, look at this new shiny toy that we have. He's playing in Major League Baseball. We're making profit off of him. Let's reward him for basically leaving Japan and joining us. That's even though
it looks a lot better for baseball if that's the story than some dude from the Yankees. Cool, bro. Nobody cares. Who's this guy?
And Ohtani had moments during his rookie season. That was evident. At the end of the day, if, like you said, if Ohtani was good in 2021 and he was exceptional in 2022, imagine what he's going to be in 2023, especially without the shift. I know that's a whole different conversation. I don't want to get too off topic, but it's the trajectory that these international players are coming in with at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Shohei Ohtani has just been, now we're obviously straying a little bit away from the topic, but, people have heard about Ohtani, so it's probably fine. Yeah, man, Shohei Ohtani is just an absolute talent to watch. But I just want to remind everybody that in 2018, when, let's face it, we were all panicking in spring training because he wasn't hitting and he wasn't pitching very well either. I mean, he was pitching in minor league games. And we were all just kind of like, ugh. And like you had people on Dodgers pages being like, oh, we dodged the bullet with that guy. Let me just remind you guys, this offseason, when you guys are trying to blow your load to get Ohtani, just remember that people kept the receipts. And, if he, in some mythical, hypothetical world, signs with the Dodgers, I'll be the first in line to print out just screenshots of that and be like, remember, you guys didn't want this guy before. Now you want him?
Yeah.
You didn't want that dude or girl who was in the back of the class. Everyone's like, oh yeah, they're a nerd and they're ugly. And all of a sudden they're like a 12 out of 10, a dime plus 99. And you want them now. No, Dodger fans, it doesn't work like that.
No. It's going to be a long, long road to hoe. Can we not think about that? I don't want to have to get to that point.
I'm getting sick to my stomach. Like if I ate way too much Taco Bell, just thinking about that. Because
here we go with the Taco Bell slander.
I want to quit baseball if that's the case, dude. I seriously do. I couldn't.
I was willing to buy a Mike Trout jersey if he was to leave the Angels back in the day before he signed his lifetime contract. Mm-hmm. I would be willing to get Ohtani jersey from another team, but the Dodgers I will not put on. That will not. I can't. Yeah. Yankees. No. Red Sox, you're towing a line. But that's please. I just hate. Let's not go there.
Those three names I agree with, and the Astros. Anybody else, I will follow Ohtani and still fully support the dude. Yeah. But if Ohtani in this world signs with the Dodgers, this will be a rugby podcast, and I don't even care about rugby.
I'd
I'm going to start caring all of a sudden.
be like,
changing
let's talk.
sports.
It's time to talk Sparks basketball on the podcast.
Yeah, and Todd announced he's leaving.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is it. His swan
Yeah.
song is complete.
Yeah, Todd's like, I'm leaving the show.
Yeah, I'm done.
No.
Let's get back on
But
track.
Andrelton Simmons, though.
So Chris Ellis was the other piece that was involved. Chris Ellis has accumulated a career WAR of 1. He is 1-0. He's got a 3.12 ERA for his career in 10 games. 8 of those were starts. He's pitched in 34.2 innings. So very uneventful career. And he has pitched for the Orioles, the Royals, and the Rays.
There you go.
If you look at that, there's not really too much to dive in on Ellis because his career has been very short. And then you add Briseño into the mix. Or Briseño came to us in that mix, but
Yes,
still,
yes.
if you look at the two pitchers and excluding Eric Ibar for a moment, even if you include Eric Ibar, at that time that Ibar was getting a little bit older, just Andrelton Simmons, take away Briseño, the Angels won the trade. Let's put that out there
absolutely.
right now. The Angels won the trade based on the numbers that we have today. Could they be different if the trade didn't go down or, all A to Z things? Of course. But the Angels won the trade. So I think automatically right there, I think we can all agree on that unanimously. We won that trade.
Absolutely. Real quick. So let me talk about Eric Ibar, because a lot of Angels fans remember him fondly. Great player. So let's talk about his one single year with Atlanta. 97 games, batted .242, had a 293 on base percentage. So, not as high as it has been, but, we're still flirting with getting on pace 30% of the time. And his slugging percentage was .313. So he was still finding ways to get on base. His defense was still pretty good. But what I'm saying is, imagine if Eric Ibar would have been on the Angels in 2016. Granted, the Angels didn't make the playoffs in 2016. Obviously, we haven't since 2014. But what I'm saying is, there is no way that anybody can argue that this was not a good trade for the Angels. Honestly, this is probably up there in Angels history for one of the better trades that have been made. Not because it led to a championship, but because you got a very, very solid shortstop who was controllable for, half a decade in exchange for basically nothing.
Usually we're holding on to guys like that.
Like Caleb Coward.
Yeah, I referenced this before when we, not to go off topic again, but just the one trade that always bothers me, which could have changed this organization no matter what Artie did, was standing pat when we had an opportunity to get Miguel Cabrera, Dontrell Willis, and AJ Burnett, and all we had to give up was at that time talented guys like Sean Newcomb who were had potential, but they weren't exactly proven. So you had Irvin Santana, you had with Jeff Mathis, Dallas McPherson. I know I'm missing out on a couple other players. But it was like a good 5 players for 1 or 5 players for 3, and the Marlins were all in, and the Angels were the ones that stepped away from the table. And you could have had a Hall of Famer and Miggy on the squad along with Guerrero. A great rotation. Maybe Willis gives you 3 more good years before he winds up crapping out. Burnett finished up with a long career.
Yeah.
It could have changed things. And here's a deal where the Angels went out and got a player and were able to hold on to Simmons for quite some time because they weren't scared to pull the trigger.
Well, he had signed an extension with the Braves. So, and like Dominic said earlier, they were in rebuild mode.
Yeah.
They're tearing it down.
But they could have just said, "Hey, we got scared and not, pulled the trigger." Yeah. They did. So kudos to the Angels for that one because they definitely did win the trade. You guys are right.
This was Billy Epler's first offseason as the general manager, so he wanted to come in and make some good changes,
splash.
Right? Yeah, because who was the Angels? I was going to say who was the Angels shortstop in 2015? It was Eric Ibar, but their second baseman was a guy named Johnny Giavotella. If anybody remembers Mr. Go Johnny Go.
Leave that Italian stallion alone. I was honestly, I'm
the
not gonna
Italian
lie.
dreamboat.
I still
Hey.
have his promo for Angels Central when I was on there when he's like, join us. Johnny Giovatella.
No, I was a huge Johnny Giovatella fan. I thought the quick speediness, it had reminiscence of Eric Ibar a little bit, maybe not as great of a glove, but just that short, prototypical middle infielder, David Eckstein type feel.
Yep.
I love that guy. You know, they also at that time had, you know, David Freese for a few years when Simmons came to town. You know,
Yep.
the Fernando favorite Escobar, you know, Escobar in the house. You know, so the Angels had some interesting, the roster that year. I have it right here. The first year of Andrelton Simmons, this was the Angels starting lineup. Catcher was Carlos Perez, first base CJ Crone, Giovatella at second, Escobar at third, Simmons short, in left field Rafael Ortega.
Oh.
Mike Trout in center, Cole Calhoun in right, and Albert Pujols in right field, or pardon me, designated hitter.
Who's that?
Yeah, so that was right after the Josh Hamilton
debacle.
Yeah.
The Matt Joyce and the Josh Hamilton debacles.
Jeez.
How about that?
What was that guy's name in left field?
Vernon Well.
No, was it Nova?
Oh yeah, Daniel Nava.
Yeah.
Daniel Nava. Yeah, he was like a journeyman or whatever. Like,
yeah.
I think he went like to play overseas for a little bit, came back, played for the Red Sox or whatever. Then he signed with the Angels.
Yeah. And then you had just some wild that, you know, that was between the time of Iannetta before Martin Maldonado. So the catching situation was awry. That was the era of Giovatella, but just before Danny Espinosa for a year. The Angels were in a very flux situation. So looking at it from the past to now, Simmons, looking at just every position for the last couple of years, Simmons was the biggest mainstay outside of Mike Trout that was stable. The Angels, we always preach depth and stability. Andrelton Simmons, another pro for him. He was a hella stable shortstop, regardless of what he did defensively or offensively.
His health was always the biggest thing. He'd get hurt from just weird things. I remember 2016, I think it was Mother's Day. Was it 16 or 17? He was making a diving play. When he dove over, his glove got stuck in the dirt. His thumb dug in with the glove, but the rest of his hand kept going. Yeah. So I remember him taking his glove off and just his thumb just like dangling. And I was like,
oh. Yeah, that ligament damage. Yeah, he had some wacko. But the funny thing is, those wacko injuries happened when he made an incredible play.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The guy was just phenomenal. I remember he had another injury where he got hurt for like a couple weeks falling down the stairs in the dugout.
Yep.
He was like climbing down like the 3 steps they have to get into the Angels dugout and just
flat on his ass or whatever happened.
Slipped on the mat that's meant for cleats.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't a problem there. But no, Simmons was, let's be like I said, him and Trout were the prototypical stability in that Angels starting lineup.
And Cole Calhoun. He was here for, quite a while.
Yeah, Cole Calhoun was here from 2014 to 2019, so you could throw him into the mix. So Calhoun, Trout, and Simmons were your top 3. I know Albert Pujols was there, but, we all have our feelings about Albert.
But you could still put his name in Sharpie every year.
Correct. So, but there was still stability for that Angels infield. And that's what the Angels had needed, especially coming from Eric Ibar, which was stability. You got stability in return. So there was plenty of pros in this deal. Like we already said, Angels won the trade. Value-wise, on-field production, it was definitely a winner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Andrelton Simmons, I think, was a great Angel. I mean, okay, so let's go over some of his career numbers as an Angel. So he only played in 561 games in 5 years. Seems like a lot, but, the number could have been higher. Keep in mind, he missed a pretty decent amount.
Yeah, about 110 games a year, so you're expecting one big injury every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he was never a power hitter, but he did hit 36 home runs as an Angel. He got 238 RBIs. He only struck out 202 times. Now, that's something that's not talked about a lot. Simmons did not strike out often at all. 202 times in 5 years. Those guys are striking out more than that in a season. The guy didn't strike out. He made consistent contact, and of course he went through his slumps, but man, oh man, was that guy good at making connections. He was a great leadoff hitter because he led off for us quite a bit. He batted 281 in those 5 years. He had an on-base percentage of 328. That's also something else that's pretty underrated about his game. And not to mention, he was one of baseball's best defensive shortstops during those 5 years. He won 2 Gold Gloves and a Platinum Glove while he was here. And then I think every single year he was nominated, and probably would have won if it wasn't for his injuries. But the biggest thing and the biggest hole in his career, he has not won or made it to an All-Star game yet. 2017 was probably the year, but Mike Trout robbed him of it. And the only reason I say Mike Trout robbed him of it was because Mike Trout was out, but he got in through the fan vote. So he was a quote-unquote elected starter, but he didn't play, nor did he show up, because if you remember in 2017, Mike Trout was in San Bernardino during All-Star Weekend rehabbing. So that's the only reason. It's no disrespect to Mike Trout. Obviously, the guy deserves to be an All-Star, and he had great numbers, but he only played through the middle of May, and then Trout got hurt. I think that was the year he slid in at second base, and his wrist got effed up.
Yeah, that was the thumb hand injury that...
Yeah, now he wears the oven mitt.
Yeah, that spun the generation of oven mitt players now, which is fine. It's good for them.
I'm here for it. I think it looks kind of cool. But, so 2017 for Andrelton Simmons, let's talk about that year, because that was his best year, in my opinion. That was the year he played the most games of his career, actually. I was going to say as an Angel, but not only as an Angel, but of his career. He played 158 games. In that year, had 647 plate appearances, got 164 hits, 14 home runs, 69 RBIs, batted 278 with a 331 on-base percentage. Oh, and he was top 10 in MVP that year and won a Gold Glove.
I think that was probably one of the most highly productive, even though Eric Ibar was a fan favorite and he did his job. He never sometimes went above and beyond what he had to do, just because the team around him, he had people like Vladimir Guerrero in the lineup to do the dirty work. You had Torrey Hunter. You had other guys like that. So Ibar knew his place. Simmons, at a time where the Angels were struggling offensively, he took the reins, and I'm not saying he was Mike Trout, but he stepped up into that top 4 player in that Angels lineup and was a consistent...
Right behind Eric Young Jr., who was Mike Trout in 2017.
I'm not going to... That'll be another podcast, Eric Young Jr.
Dude, that would be a fun show to talk about, the rise and fall of Eric Young Jr.
But even in 28, even if you look 1 year later to 2018, Andrelton Simmons, a 292 average, even improved there, 337 on-base percentage, 417 slug, and he had 11 home runs and 75 RBIs. So a couple stats.
And he won a Gold Glove.
And he won a Gold Glove. So a couple of the statting categories go up, a few go down. It all balances out. And 146 games. So a dozen less games, 47 less plate appearances. So that was probably one injury. But overall, that was, out of the 5 years, that was the chunk of time where he was legitimate. I know 2021, or not 2021, his last year was 2020 in the pandemic, and we're not going to count the pandemic against him. Every player struggled, and it was a weird time. But out of the 4 full seasons that he got as an Angel, those 2 were by far his most productive years, and somebody that could have got an extension, barring whatever issues were happening at the time when he left during that end of the 2020 season.
Yeah, he had his mental health situation, and it is what it is, right? I mean, 2020 was hard for everybody. I mean, I don't know. I will say this. I like to joke that Escobar was my favorite Angel of all time. I like the way he played. I liked his energy. I just think he was ahead of his time. He was quirky. He was fun. But once again, if he would have played if he would have been a rookie 2 years ago, Escobar probably would have lasted a little longer. But because he was such an a-hole, he didn't last too long. But if I'm being legitimately honest with you, Andrelton Simmons is my all-time favorite Angel. Always played with heart. Yeah, he got hurt, but he always got hurt making a big play. He made plays that I never even thought possible. One of the ones that comes to my mind immediately when I had to think Andrelton Simmons was a ball that was thrown from the catcher to second base because somebody was stealing. So doesn't seem like a big deal, right? And why would Andrelton Simmons get the ball? So the catcher, I don't know who it was. I want to say maybe Martin Maldonado threw the ball over to second base, but nobody was covering second base. So instead of the ball rolling to center field, Andrelton Simmons comes out of nowhere, robs the ball right at the corner where the dirt and the grass meet, and prevents the runner from getting over to third base. That was he wasn't even in the frame.
It was a lot of small things that he did right.
Yeah, he vacuumed up a lot of ground balls that should have got through the hole, or like Fernando said, getting runners from first to third. He stopped that a lot.
Yeah, he used to do all kinds of crazy things. I remember in Houston, what year was that? Might have been 17, where he made a catch, and as he was falling backwards, tagged a guy at third base and like slapped him in the face with the ball behind his back, and he got the out. He used to do stuff like that all the time. Yeah. Or there was a time where he was playing pickle with like Jose Altuve at second base, and the guy ran from third to home. He pretended like he wasn't paying attention, and he just threw the ball across his body, got the guy out at home.
He was very athletic in that sense, where he could throw across his body. I know everybody talks about the good old, Derek Jeter play where he backhands the ball, makes the big jump, throws it to first. Simmons did that and more. He was very athletic. Oh, yeah. And the time I loved seeing his athleticism on display was when he's at shortstop, a batter fouls a ball on the third base side in like shallow left field, but it's not going in the seats. It's in that foul territory, especially when the Angels were playing in Oakland with the huge foul territory space. And he would make that run from near second base on his shift all the way to foul territory, where you think it should be the third baseman's ball in a heartbeat, right? He's got the shorter distance. No, you see a full sprint, lay out, just at that point, he could have just done like a little, Mary Lou Retton, pirouette at the end, and everybody would have scored him a 10.0. He was the model of athleticism. I think that was my favorite aspect about Andrelton Simmons. It was his athleticism and how bendy like a rubber band he was, diving for a ball, jumping, catching, throwing. Even his swing was very rubber bandy at times. We always talk about Adrian Beltre, who would, strike out and go down to a knee. Simmons would do that and get a hit. It's kind
Simmons would hit home runs from his knee.
It was very reminiscent of, like I said, Beltre, maybe even sometimes Vladimir Guerrero Jr., because that stance, he didn't have that prototypical batting stance. He had kind of the oddly kind of crinked arm a little bit and kind of was swinging it, and then he would kind of coil up and swing. So when he coiled, naturally the swing progression is down, which dropped into a knee. So the athleticism, whole body, head to toe, was off the charts. Probably, I would say, he wins for most athletic shortstop in Angels history. I'll give him that credit for sure.
Okay.
Best defensive shortstop in Angels history?
I wasn't alive for half of them. So
yeah, that's fair.
We weren't alive for half, but I would say in my lifetime.
Well, Todd was.
Yeah. Todd is young. How dare you? Todd is young at heart.
Oh, Papa Fox for sure was. Papa Fox would be the one to ask. Did your dad like Andrelton Simmons, Todd?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's probably one of his favorite players.
Okay. I would say in my lifetime, full disclosure, born 1995, in my reign, I've seen, or the players that have been playing, D. Sarcina, Gill, Eckstein, Cabrera, Ibar, Simmons, Iglesias, Velasquez. In my era, you could throw Fletcher and Rengifo in there if you want. In the era of shortstop since I've been, born, I would say Simmons is the most athletic, then Ibar would be second. And, those would be the top two most athletically gifted shortstops since 95.
Todd?
I'd have to go, since he covered the athletic side of it, I'll agree with that. If I had to rank mine, I'd have to go Doug DeCinces number one, because his power numbers, he had, 3 seasons of 20 or 2 seasons of three over 20 home runs, one of 30. He had a career batting average with the Angels. He only played 6 years, but he had a 265 average. You know, he was that power hitting shortstop that the Angels really never had. He led the team to 2 playoff appearances. And then I would say number 2 for me would be Orlando Cabrera. He put together some really good seasons with the Angels. You know, very consistent batter. You know, hit 300, close to it, and again was always high RBIs. Good defense. And then D. Sarcina for longevity. He was just on the Angels for his entire career, 98 to 2000. Not going to blow you away with his home runs, but his defense was key. His batting average was always high. He got on base. And then I would say Eckstein and Ibar would round out my 5. I would have Andrelton right at 6 because I think Eckstein's accomplishments, you know, were here and in St. Louis. You could see he was that cog, that missing piece to a World Series winning playoff team. Ibar, I thought, was amazing with the pitching. He would always go out there. I've brought this up many times. He'd go up and pat a guy in the back when the pitching coach didn't come out yet, or when the catcher didn't even come out. He'd just give him a few words of wisdom, and it seemed like it would loosen up the pitcher, and he'd pitch a little bit better. I never saw Ibar go out there and the pitcher would blow up and suck. Like he did little things, and like you guys said, he was perfect for the era he was in. And I think the same thing with D. Sarcina. If they were around right now, they'd be bench players at best. But they fit the mold at the time. Maybe even Eckstein too. But I think for their eras, they were good. I think Simmons is no slouch, though. I mean, you could easily, you know, battle my picks and put him ahead of any of those guys except DeSense's, in my opinion. Simmons was a solid player for the Angels. It's just the years we had him, we didn't have our best players around him.
Yeah, that's a good one. The one person I agree with you, Todd, on all that information. The one thing I would forget, have we forgot that Jim Fregosi was an Angel? Like, I know that was very early on back, you know, 60s, because in his 11 years with the Angels, 268 average, over 1,400 hits, 115 home runs, 546 RBIs, and he was a workhorse, 1,429 games. I think that's maybe just because he's older, you know, before all our time.
I can't cover that one.
I think that's just a generic one that all 3 of us can't relate to. You know, that'd be further down the gene pool a little bit. But I would say out of all 9 positions, shortstop's been a position the Angels have had at least 5 or 6 quality names through the years.
Yeah, there's some positions
that haven't let them down.
Yeah, I would think if you're going to rank positions as far as the least productive in this team's history, I would have to circle catcher. It wouldn't be shortstop. I think you've had a plethora, like we've gone through shortstops that have had longevity, good hitting. Catcher has always been the spot that's always been, you know, like you could say, okay, we had Benji Molina for a little while. We had Mike Napoli, but we gave up on him too fast. Chris Iannetta, could you put him in there? Martin Maldonado, defense.
I think the sad part is, like, you can, you know, put Chris Iannetta in there and not get left out of the building.
Yeah. Well, see, here's one that, like, nobody remembers. I mean, only, like, really hardcore fans like my dad would remember, and that's Lance Parrish. He was only here a few years. He was mostly known for his time in Detroit, winning a World Series, in Philly, I think winning one as well. But when he came to Anaheim, he was here, I think, 3 or 4 years. He was a top 5 catcher, top 3 even, belting a lot of home runs. A lot of people said that Mike Napoli was the next Lance Parrish.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, like, that's probably the best we've ever had. Like, we've never been blessed with good catchers, really.
He was here from 89 to 91. He had a WAR of 4.5 in 1990, and his offensive WAR stats, he was let me look at my numbers here, 23.2 offensive WAR in 89, 19.0 in 90, and 10.6 offensive WAR. So he was a high-octane, high offensive catcher.
Exactly.
Which, you know, you could probably put, based on the offensive numbers alone, it's Benji Molina, Mike Napoli, Parrish, and Chris Iannetta.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, Maldonado can maybe squeak in there. He had some high offensive WAR numbers of over 20. After that, it's not pretty. The catcher is very weak.
Jeff Mathis.
Jonathan Lucroy.
Oh, God. Yeah, I forgot Jonathan Lucroy was on this team.
I'm going to take a shot
Yeah.
right here, but I think a certain Soto can bat better than Jeff Mathis nowadays.
Oh, here we go with
Just-
this.
Hey.
Here we go with Levon Soto praise.
Do not disrespect a world champion with the Braves, Jeff Mathis.
There
He
you
got
go.
his ring for doing absolutely nothing. He played
When you didn't try on the group project but got an A.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he played what 7 Sunday day games or game
Hey.
2 of a hot doubleheader. That was his role.
Hey, all you need these days to do is to get popular on social media or in the world is to play on Sundays. Oh,
There you go. And be mic'd up. You have to be mic'd up.
all right. So Andrelton Simmons is 6th in Angels all-time WAR for the shortstop position. But, you know, the caveat is he has significantly less games than almost everybody ahead of him. Okay, so the highest WAR shortstop, do you guys want to take a guess?
Fergosi?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was Fergosi, and he was involved in the Nolan Ryan trade, correct?
Yeah.
Which, you know, that also is up there for best Angels trade of all time. So Jim Fergosi played 1,429 games as an Angel. He from his age 19 to age 29 season. He had a WAR of 45.9 in that 10-year stretch. Bobby Grich, number 2, 35.1 wins above replacement, 1,222 games. Okay? Number 3, the guy who was involved in this trade, Eric Ibar. Obviously, this was the tail end of his career. They traded him at the right time. He had a career WAR of 23 wins above replacement. He played 1,220 games as an Angel. All right, so bear with me. We're getting close. Troy Gloss, 22.6 wins above replacement, 827 games with the Angels. I don't know if they're not obviously not counting just his shortstop years though. I don't think he played much shortstop, right?
No, he was primarily third base.
Yeah. So I don't know why they threw him in this category, but they did. So, you know, we might actually just be able to eliminate his name. And the last guy who's ahead of Andrelton Simmons, Sean Figgins, 22.4 wins above replacement, 936 games. Okay.
Get Figgy with it. Get Figgy.
Yeah, I love Figgy. One of my all-time favorite Angels. I think most people will probably say, yeah, I like Figgins. You know, he was a gamer.
That might have gone down as one of many, to say the least, stupid decisions the Angels did.
Yeah.
Letting him walk and go to Seattle, because we all know once he left for Seattle, he was never the same player ever again. And again, who followed up Sean Figgins? The good old negative 1.5 WAR Brandon Wood.
Hey, the winner.
Yeah.
All right, so now let me make my final pitch for Andrelton Simmons to see if you guys, you know, changed your mind a little bit and you'd put him in your top 3.
Okay.
So in 561 career games as an Angel, he is the 6th best Angel shortstop in terms of WAR, and his WAR was 20 even. In 561 games, he was able to single-handedly get the Angels 20 wins. And keep in mind, compared to the people in front of him, so from Sean Figgins up, 936 games, 827 games, 1,220, 1,222, and finally with Jim Fergosi with 1,429. Simmons is right about there with, 400 less games or 300 less games than Sean Figgins.
I'd say if you said we're talking top 5 shortstops of all time, Simmons is in.
Well, anybody who disagrees with that's an idiot.
Yeah. No, disclaimer. Let's put that disclaimer. Anybody that doesn't think that is dumb. But for the conversation purposes, we're talking top 3. It is hard sometimes to disagree with numbers. But again, the limited time span is a little tougher when it comes to the stats. For me, I'll put it out there right now. Here's my 3, and I said going in, Andrelton Simmons would be tied 3rd. I put Fergosi at number 1. I would put Eric Ibar at 2, and David Eckstein and Simmons tied at 3. I think the reason why David Eckstein gets a 3rd place vote, you have to give him props for, I think he gets extra credit for the 2002 World Series and what he helped lead the Angels, especially a wild card team. He was a figment. Again, he was kind of like Ibar and all those guys were very fan favorite shortstops. So that kind of all cancels them out against each other. After that, there could be a discussion. Maybe does DiSarcina get in there at some point? But again, those are your 5. Orlando Cabrera, Todd, I agree with you on that. He's a sneaky pick. If he lasted a couple more years at the level he was playing, he was an over 2 WAR, high 4 WAR for his 3-year span.
He had an 8.4 WAR as an Angel.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. I think he had good glove work. His bat at the top of the order, especially in the 2-hole before, at the time, Vladimir Guerrero and a lot of Juan Rivera, who was a big hitter for the Angels at the time, Jose Guillen. So you had a lot of that going on. So again, it's really tough to say just based on the amount of years they played with the Angels. Because if we're going based on years, well, guess what? Fergosi's winning that debate, and then there's a long list down the line.
Yeah.
But Eckstein gets bonus points for the World Series and how that turned the Angels organization around from the early 2000s to, 2010 or so.
Let me ask you this. So you say that Eckstein and DiSarcina, are up there for you. What do you think David Eckstein's WAR was as an Angel?
I know 2001 and 2002 were his higher WAR seasons. They were over, I know one was over 5. I think it was like 5.1 or 5.2 in that regard. But I think total WAR, he'd probably be at least over a 10 for sure. Because I know he tapered off after those 2 seasons for sure. And again, he was only an Angel for 4 years.
Yeah. Which was only a year more than Simmons. So his WAR was 13.1. What do you think Gary DiSarcina was at?
DiSarcina was with the Angels
in 1,086 games.
1,086 games. I'm going to say comparable, probably somewhere between 10, looking at because the Angels in the 90s were not great. And again, I was in diapers, so give me a little break here.
No.
I will say DiSarcina was no better than Eckstein, but no worse. I'm going to say crappy Angels in the 90s, somewhere between an 8.5 and a 12.
He was at 11.2.
Okay. Woohoo! My brain works.
That's a good guess. I just with DSAR, why he's a fan favorite to me, why I would go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs if I met him too, because I think he was just that one player where he'd scoop up everything. He wasn't flashy, didn't do anything spectacular, but just, he'd give you good at bats. He was a great leader. I mean, you could point back to that 95 season. Had he not got hurt, I don't think they go on those losing streaks. I mean, the exact time he was out was the exact time they couldn't win a fucking ball game. Sorry. Just they were just, I don't know. They needed him. He was just something missing when he went out, dude.
In a way, he was like the Mike Trout. Mike Trout goes down in 2021. All hell breaks loose for the Angels. He was a figment. I think you have to take, there's an element into this conversation that could, we talk about this all the time in sports, with the greatest of all time conversation. In basketball, is it LeBron? Is it Jordan? Is it Kobe? Baseball, there's a multitude of people that can be in that conversation. Football, Tom Brady, you name your favorite player there. The greatest of all time, or at least top 5 organizationally, whatever list you put together, you have to take the generation of the sport into consideration. We hear this all the time, especially with basketball. Is it Jordan? Is it Kobe? Is it Magic? Is it, LeBron?
I'm positive it's not Magic.
Yeah. Could it be Chamberlain? It could be whatever. In that case, they all played in extremely different eras of basketball. Could LeBron do what Jordan did in the 90s? Probably not. Could Kobe have done it? Well, Kobe replicated Jordan, so who knows? But it's always going to be a who knows question, and I think that kind of goes in with this. Could Andrelton Simmons do what he did with that 20 WAR back in the 90s when the Angels were losing a lot? We're never going to know.
I mean, the Angels were losing a lot while he was here.
The caliber of pitching was different in the 90s than it is today. Hey, they were using the spitball back in the day. They had the sticky stuff. Nowadays, we don't have the sticky stuff as much.
Well,
think about this, man. Imagine if you replace Eckstein and put Simmons on that squad, that 2002 squad. I mean,
they're nastier.
Yeah, they're winning over 100 games easy.
Yeah, because you have Simmons who's probably hitting 280 because he was a 280 hitter as an Angel.
Yeah.
Because he was getting about 15 homers.
If you look at it, the 4 years X time, to use that as an example, 2001, the Angels win 75 games. 2002, of course, World Series, 99 wins. 2003, 78 wins. 2004, Eckstein's final year, the Angels go off and win 92 games. So there could be a conversation's sake that Andrelton Simmons could have made that squad better just based on the numbers. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, he would have probably hit more home runs because he would have got better pitches to hit. He would have probably got more walks. You could say the same thing if you put him on the 95 squad, replace him with Gary DiSarcina. I think you'd get more numbers out of him. But here's what it is.
Here's, now that we brought this up, here's a fun little tidbit I'd like to see. Where would Andrelton Simmons be placed in the batting order instead of Eckstein? Would he have been a leadoff hitter? Because, the 2002, we know, let me see. The 2003 squad was very similar, except Tim Salmon, Darren Erstad, Salmon, instead of Fulmer, it was Jeff Devannon. So let's go with the 77 win 2003 Angels squad, which was Molina, Spezio, Kennedy, Gloss, Eckstein, a.k.a. Andrelton Simmons, Anderson, Erstad, Devannon, Salmon. Where do you think Simmons would rely upon? Because Eckstein was the prototypical leadoff hitter. Could Simmons go leadoff and then bat behind Darren Erstad? Maybe Erstad gets shifted into the leadoff position. Simmons maybe goes down to maybe where Brad Fulmer was in the 6 hole and match him with Spezio a little bit. There's an interesting question to be had because you already know the bottom third of your order was going to be Devannon, Molina, Kennedy.
I think you would lead him off and then have Erstad second, third, Salmon, Gloss, Anderson, or Anderson, Gloss.
Yeah. Yeah, you could have that conversation. I've always loved Darren Erstad as a leadoff hitter as well. I always felt, even growing up, Erstad and Eckstein were very similar in their approaches to the plate, of course, Erstad had a little more pop in his bat than David Eckstein did, but Simmons does make a quality case to make those 4 years of Angels baseball even better.
I'll tell you one last thing about that though, is if Simmons played on that team or at any time with Darren Erstad in his prime, that would have been good baseball to watch. You would have had just Erstad snagging everything at either first or center field, diving, making incredible plays, stealing bases, getting his jersey dirty, and then you'd see Simmons trying to outdo him with the same kind of stuff, making over-the-shoulder catches, diving, stealing plays, making unbelievable double plays, swinging from his knees. I mean, it would have been awesome to watch those two on the same team.
And you would have had a great technician tandem between Simmons at short and Adam Kennedy at second.
Exactly.
That would have been a nice, little transfer, up the middle of the infield. Which the Angels have had. Let's be real. The Angels have had some pretty good tandems up the middle of the infield. You had Ibar as Torres. You had
Ibar and Kendrick.
You had Fletcher Simmons. The Angels have had some really good dynamic duos up the middle.
Patella wasn't that bad either. As a second baseman. So
no, the Angels are.
Yeah, Giavotella walked so Fletcher could run.
Leave the short Italians alone. I feel personally and verbally attacked right now. I'm just kidding.
I think we've also had a weakness at third defensively, and outside of Gloss and a couple other players. Yeah. Third base has been a weekness too. So the rest of the infield has been always really, really good. But
I will not accept Escobar slander.
There you go.
The Angels have been marred at third base since letting Figgins go.
Yeah.
They had Wood, Callaspo. Alberto Callaspo wasn't, was he the worst? No. Was he great? No. Then you had 2 years of washed up David Freese, unfortunately. 2 years of Escobar, which offensively, he had a very high batting average. The late Luis Valbuena. And then David Fletcher for a little bit in 2019. And then, of course, Rendon and Mayfield and Rendon and other players like that. Jonathan VR and other players. The Angels haven't had a stout third baseman since Troy Gloss. And to put it in perspective, Troy Gloss was, as I count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, a 5-year Angel. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been no long outstanding. If Anthony Rendon serves the 7-year deal, he will be the longest Angel third baseman since any guesses? Any guesses?
I know I'm gonna be mad at myself for not guessing this. I know I'm missing a third baseman from the 80s.
If you have, I'll give you a chance, but I will say this: if Anthony Rendon survives his all 7 years, regardless injury or whatever, if he stays, he will be the longest tenured Angel at third base. 7 years. The next would have been DeSensei's 6 years.
Oh yeah, because he went back and forth.
Correct. So 82 to 87 was DeSensei's. So you're telling me Anthony Rendon's going to be the longest tenured? Because you would think, let's be real, no stats. Prime Anthony Rendon, 7 years with the Angels. You'd think he'd probably be the best.
Yeah, third baseman in terms of WAR and everything, right?
Everything. That's barring what happens over the next 4 seasons. He would have to probably produce like a 10 WAR each year in order to
get the ball out of his mind.
Yeah, he's gonna have to ball in order to become at least a top 3 Angel third baseman of all time. Because right now, Figgins, Gloss, the Senseis, no one's giving up that reign anytime soon.
Well, the saddest thing is this: like the limited time that he has played, whether it's slump or not, you look at Rendon and you've never been able to sit there and say, well, his defense sucks. Like you're able to say, man, he's like a vacuum cleaner over there at third. Like he makes most plays and makes it look easy. It's just he's never proven it in an Angel uniform with his bat yet because he can't stay on the field. But his defense, I would have to say, is probably one of the best, if not the best, I've seen at third. Like Gloss, his first couple of years, he was very mobile for a tall third baseman. But you could tell he was going to move to first at some point or DH, which he did later in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But Rendon, like he's just shown that he can get everything over there, and just if he could just stay on the field, we know what he can give you defensively. Just offensively, we just haven't seen a glimpse of it even.
We've seen it in glimpses of a week or two at a time, and then it drops off.
Yeah.
Early this season before he got hurt, there was moments. Had a couple walk-offs, had a couple, 2-on, 2-out situational hitting, but it hasn't worked out that way. Again, his situation is very reminiscent to the Angels' struggles at shortstop.
Yep.
It's very, you think you got something, you see it shine for a little bit, and then it drops off. Same thing with Andrelton Simmons in a way. His first 2 years were a struggle, and we're thinking, at the time, what's going on? He has 2 great years, and then injuries and COVID and things kind of derailed the end of his Angel tenure. So it again is, we are talking about right now it's very simplistic and difficult to hear at the same time, but it's a trend that happens in the Angels organization for years and years. This is not just a shortstop third base issue. We could probably do a whole podcast episode diving in on every position and figuring out what years was this theme happening. It's happened at every position. The Angels pitching was happening probably since the Angel, 2015 to up to 2021. That's that window. And then you can continue it on, throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but circling back to Simmons, I have him tied for third. I know the numbers sometimes in the WAR don't make sense, but I think I have to look at the impact a player had on his team. And definitely Simmons had an impact defensively in a lot of other categories, leadership-wise. But I would still put, like I said, Fregosi at a 1, Ibar at a 2, and Eckstein/Simmons tied for the third position for me. So yes, in a way, I know I might be playing the fence a little bit, but via the tie, just like every NFL fan loves a good tie, Andrelton Simmons technically gets into my top 3 Angel shortstops of all time.
And one last thing I want to say about Simmons, though, too, is it's a little weird that, his career played out the way it has. I'm not saying it's over, but obviously since pandemic year and onward, he's just hit a real wall. Yeah. Usually, players –
mentally.
If you were to tell me or even Fernando in 2018, like, hey man, this guy's only got 1 year left and then he's just gonna fall off, you're
Yeah.
gonna be like, no, dude. Like he's barely hitting his prime. Like, between 28 and 32 years old, he should be batting, making an all-star bid again. He should be one of the top players on the Angels or another player, being instrumental on another club at short, one of the top 5, top 10 shortstops in baseball. But to see, like, it's rare. Like, you see other players like that'll hit their stride 29, 30, and they get that contract till 34, 35, then they fall off. Like, Simmons fell off way too early, in my opinion. It just feels like he's left a lot out there. And I hope that he can catch on this year, whether it's a spring training invite and he proves himself and makes it to a roster, like with the Orioles, Pirates, A's, like we were talking about with a former Angel, and he can get a swan song second half of his career going. Because I would just hate for him to bow out last year. Last year was just, I couldn't believe he couldn't get anything going with the Cubbies.
Yeah.
And then the Twins wasn't much better the year before.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's funny because the Angels are so used to receiving players that we think are going to be great, and then they kind of fall off. This was one of the, I don't want to say few, but it's probably one of the ones in recent years that left the Angels on a high. I know 2020 wasn't a high, but majority on a high. But then ends up really slapping against a brick wall and is left for mush.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard. Sean Figgins would have been another one to probably put into that conversation. It's really hard to think who's another one that could be there. That could be a topic for another conversation.
Garrett Richards and Matt Shoemaker, maybe, and still not even like that much.
Yeah,
because they weren't that great here either because of injuries.
I would say Garrett Anderson, when he went to the Braves and Dodgers, he was just not the same player.
No,
he was all he hung around a little too long though.
Yeah, there's a lot of players, but I think Simmons is one that you just like you said, Todd, scratch your head a little bit and you say he was on such a high. And I get 2020 and mental illness and all the things he was going through. You think, maybe he has a bounce back with the Cubs in 2022, and it never came to fruition. And maybe it never will. Maybe it will with some team. Yeah. But it's crazy to think.
He's 33 now, so he just exited his prime a little earlier than most.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. Like again, like most major league players, they'll put in some time in the minor leagues unless they're like an international player that comes up real early. Simmons did come up early with Atlanta, but again, I would have figured he had a good 4 or 5 more years left of putting up at least productive numbers before he became like a platoon afterthought. I'm very surprised to see where he's at right now in his career.
Yeah, and it's such a damn shame because I honestly think that if he would have continued his Angels offensive numbers, batting .270, and continuing to win Gold Glove, I legitimately thought that he would have been in the Hall of Fame conversation because he would just, cream of the crop defensively in the game. And like I said, if he was consistently batting .270, .280, and he won another, 3 or 4 Gold Glove, we're talking about a 7 or 8 Gold Glove winner. I mean, that's a Hall of Fame career right there. Unfortunately, it's the complete opposite. He's got 37.1 wins above replacement currently, which means he got, 60%, 65% of them as an Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He's got a career .263 batting average. He's got non-base percentage of .312. So, I mean, those numbers are just, a lot lower because of 2 bad years, one with the Twins and one with the Cubs. Betting 173 last year, guys.
Hey, that's what makes baseball any sport a funny sport. You can go from top of your class to bottom of the barrel with one injury, one misstep, someone takes your job, and hey, Anderson, he's got to work for it. If he still wants it, he's still got the drive, he can go do it. Hey, if Elvis Andrus can still be relevant in Major League Baseball right now, or, hey, there was the Romine, Austin Romine was still rotating around, and all these journeymen that are still making their rounds around Major League Baseball. Andrelton Simmons should be able to find somewhere if he's still got the drive and the talent and can put it all together.
Yeah. We'll see what happens to him. All right. I mean, anything else, guys? I mean, my arguments, I know where you boys stand now.
You're just mad because we didn't fully agree. We weren't jumping
Exactly.
off the page and flipping off tables right now.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Yeah.
It's 12:34 in the morning here in New Jersey, and I'm about to start flipping things.
He's going to go compete with what's her name from the Real Housewives of New Jersey and flip some tables now.
I've never seen that show, but I very much appreciate.
Hey, you see the meme floating around everywhere. The tape, you'll just tape
The one with the cat?
No, that's another
Oh,
one.
okay.
Just type in Real Housewives table flipping. You'll have a fun night since you're in New Jersey, it only makes sense you watch it in New Jersey.
There's no such thing as a fun night in New Jersey. I don't know. I mean, maybe if you ask Mike Trout, he's having a good time at Storybook Land, but
Yeah, I don't know what else is there to do except count potholes in the street.
eat at crappy diners.
There you go.
Hey, I've never been to New Jersey, so I can't say a word.
It's all right. You don't need to go to Joyzy. Joyzy's there's nothing to see. Their main export is crippling depression.
All right, and that's it's been crossed off my bucket list.
There you go.
All right, so that's our podcast for Andrelton Simmons talk. We're probably going to be profiling more players as we go through here towards a start of spring training and hopefully a new beginning to this season. Because last thing I'll say is, we're hoping for bigger and better things this season. It's going to be an uphill battle. Just one game at a time, I think should be the mantra for this team moving forward. The battle cry. We don't know who the owner is going to be, but hopefully soon we'll have that decision here if Manfred holds to his word here, and we'll see what happens, man. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I was all in last year, and real quick, boys, with the moves that have been made, I know you're going to touch on this on another episode, but you guys feeling a little bit more optimistic than last year?
A little bit. I will say this. I know we talked about this before we started recording. Before the winter meetings and before the recent signings, I had the Angels at least a solid B+. Hunter Renfroe, Gio Urshela, Tyler Anderson. The Angels were starting in the right direction. They've kind of stalled out a little bit. They did get Estevez for the bullpen, which I think could be a good signing and a good balance of the bullpen. At the end of the day, I would drop the Angels at this point in comparison to all the other moves to maybe a C- at best. Luckily, a lot of signings have gone to the National League, and the Angels don't have to worry about them as much. Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, a couple pitchers. But the Angels are going to be in a dogfight in the AL West. Yep. I know it's going to be it's Houston's division still, no matter what, and the Angels are going to have an uphill battle competing against them, but Seattle's not going nowhere. They're here. Texas is on the rise with Bruce Bochy, Jacob deGrom, and they're starting to put the pieces together slowly but surely. Oakland is an afterthought. You can't take them for granted because you don't want to lose games to them and be put even into a deeper hole. But the Angels right now, I think they're still competing for third place with the Texas Rangers. At this point, they've done nothing to jump out of the page in comparison now to other moves being made. They balked on a couple shortstops. They got a good pitcher in Tyler Anderson. They need to make some sort of a move, and I think the noise is going to be coming real that Shohei might go if they don't supply him and supply Trout with really, really good talent that can win for years to come. It's not just a win and done. They really need to find a way to keep Ohtani on the books. And if he's not liking what he sees, he's already made it clear. He wants to be competitive. That's what matters to him. The Angels right now, I think if we started opening day tomorrow, you're going to see a repeat of 2022, pardon me. A good start, maybe catch fire at some point through the year, but there's going to be some lulls. The pitching staff is going to be pretty good. The Angels need one more starter, but I think you're looking at a few extra wins. The Angels finished up with how many wins in 2022? 70. Was it 70? Right on the book 70 or 75? 77?
I think it was a few more wins than their all-time low.
So yeah. I'm thinking the Angels right now, with the roster that's on paper, they are just above a 500 team. Maybe like 84-80. Or pardon me, 82-80. at that point. So still some work to do. There's work to be done. Maybe trade market, maybe free agency, but Perry's got to get going. He's got to wake up from the winter slumber, and he had a couple weeks off. He needs to get back to work. I think, honestly, with the holidays coming up, I don't know if you see anything until maybe after Christmas, even though there's still a week to go. You know, people on vacation. I think, January, you might see some more movement.
Okay. Fernando?
I love the early on moves, but, much like I'm doing right now, Perry's been asleep for a little bit too long, and his, assistant GM has been just doing a bunch of minor league signings, which is fine, but, something's got to change. The rest of the division's gotten better. You're all of a sudden in a position where, you're fighting for third or fourth place right now. Houston's obviously the top dog. Seattle made the playoffs last year, so and they're making moves on top of that. And then obviously, the Rangers just got the best pitcher in baseball.
When healthy.
Granted, that's the problem. He's never really fully healthy. But, if for whatever reason he is fully healthy this year, that's going to hurt us. We're kind of screwed because Jacob deGrom is definitely a franchise-altering player. So we'll see what happens with that. As of right now, once again, I'm assuming he's going to get hurt as per usual. But, obviously they made their moves last year. And keep in mind, the Rangers are still rebuilding. They still have a bunch of prospects coming up. So they might be really good in about a year or two. They're going to have a really nasty starting rotation in like 2023, 2024. 2024, 2025. But, we'll see. The Angels are definitely a move or two away from just contending in the division itself. But we'll see. We'll see. As of right now, this went from being like an A- off season to me, to being like a B- C+.
We're hunting for the wild card at best right now. And there's a steep drop in that sense. 3 wild card spots. I would say the Angels are like the 5th team out of that. Like they're 2 teams away.
Yeah, it worries me because the East is all good. And then the Central, you might have to worry about 1 or 2 teams, but
in all fairness, the Yankees haven't gotten much better. So, that was one of the teams.
How dare you? The Judge came in and he's got the wig on now.
Well, exactly. I was going to say, that's just kind of a lateral move.
Really.
Great. So you went from sitting there to sitting over there. Okay, cool.
You can mark this tape right here before I go. My last thing I'm going to say is I'll ride my bike from my house to down Catella to the stadium.
Here it is.
That Artie built that that the Cowboy built that Artie made so much
even better.
Yeah. I'll do that naked. If
God.
If
I'm going to hold you to this. I'm going to hold you to this.
If,
boy.
Not because I want to see you naked, but for the memes. Why is there a homeless man riding down Catella on a bike naked?
He's not homeless.
You have to grow your beard out. You would have to grow your beard out.
Yes. If Aaron Judge hits 50 or more bombs, I don't think he's going to repeat it. That was a stolen MVP and a what is it? Pay me now home run.
Yeah, that was
50.
That was the puff. That was.
I don't think he's going to hit 50, dude.
Okay, I would say I would say there's no goddamn way he hit 60 ever again in his life, but I can see him getting 50 at least one more time. But hey, man, you're the one riding from Whittier to Angel Stadium.
That's a long ass ride now.
Your cheeks would be getting a little chapped at a certain point. And
you have to do it
the ones on the face.
Yeah, there's like a golden week of the year where you could possibly do that.
To make it even better, Judge hitting 50 or the Angels winning 10 in a row.
Ooh.
What's happening first?
I think 10 in a row, to be honest.
Ooh. All right, put that poll out on social media. Let's see what people vote.
I'm definitely taking neither, but I think the Angels are like a 7
near me on that bike. But
yeah, dude, we're gonna have your fiance come by with like a blanket. Like, no, he's doing it, but you can't watch.
He's on a union break. He's not writing at the moment.
Randy's there, like, hey, say OnlyFans, say the hitty OnlyFans.
Yeah, Heady After Dark.
Heady After Dark.
For Todd Fox,
Wait, quick. Before we get off, we have to say, make sure to give this a 5-star review, unless you're going to give us a 1-star review for promoting nudity. Make sure to follow us on all of our social medias. Make sure to follow our friends at Catella Chronicles, and make sure to follow our personal accounts, which I'm not even going to tell you because I really don't care if you follow my personal account or not. But yeah, I'm not going to be, yo, here's my at. I will say this, though. You can find me at New Jersey crying in pain because this place sucks.
And for Catella Chronicles, we have the famous
Dominic Lorenz in the house. Follow us at Catella_CHRON and at CatellaChronicles.wordpress.com.
All right, everybody. You have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Feliz Navidad, Prospero Años y Felicidad.
Happy Kwanzaa.